Hello everybody, my name is Mrs Law. I'm a History and Modern Studies teacher in the Humanities faculty, and welcome to the National 5 History Fab revision video. In this video I'm going to take you through the structure for the National 5 History skills and show you a little bit about our current revision guide that we have for the National 5 History skills booklet. If at any point after this video you have any further questions, please feel free to get in touch with Mr Miller, Mrs Bird, Mr Fraser and myself, and we'd be more than happy to help. So, our National 5 History skills are made up of 6 skill questions, which you should hopefully see on the screen. We have our knowledge skill questions and our source skill questions. So for our knowledge skill questions, you'll know that we have 3 questions, which are the describe, explain the reasons, and the 9 marker. These 3 questions do not have a source. It is just purely based on your own knowledge. And you can see the allocated time dedicated to each of the questions there. The source skill questions, the compare the views, evaluate the usefulness, and the how fully describe and explain, they do have a source, with the compare the views, of course, having 2 sources. And within your answer, you are expected to use the source and also your knowledge. The only one that this does not apply to is the compare the views, where you only need to refer to the 2 sources. You don't need any new knowledge, which in some ways makes it a delightful 4-mark question. If you do want to have a look at any past papers for National 5 History, please feel free to scan the QR code using your device. So, let's have a look at the describe question. So 4 marks, probably the easiest straightforward question of them all. You are expected to write 4 specific facts that answer the question. It's really important that you avoid writing a list, like a bullet point list. You need to make sure that you start every mark with a link back to the question. So let's say the question was describe the role of Irish immigrants in Scotland. That's obviously from our migration and empire topic. You could say something like one role of Irish immigrants in Scotland was. A second role of Irish immigrants in Scotland was. So that's what we're looking for there. With the explain the reasons question, this one's a bit more challenging. It is 6 marks and there is a 3-step process for this question. I would expect pupils to make sure they rewrite the question and they make a point and then they explain it. So for the question, you want to make sure that you rewrite the topic in the SQA question. So for example, let's say it was explain the reasons why Scots emigrated to countries abroad. It could be one reason why Scots emigrated abroad was, and then this is where you make your point, which should be very straight to the point. And the next and final bit of your answer is where you explain your answer. So you want to, in this part, if you can, bring in a Scottish example. So you could say something like, this was important because, and then explain how your point answers the question and bring in an example to back it up. You should do 6 explanations in total using the structure you see on the board to get your 6 marks. Let's have a look at the 9 marker. So for the 9 marker, it often appears as a to what extent, but it can also be written as like a how important. It's the exact same structure. Most of the time you'll be given an isolated factor, so within the question it will give you a factor to look at in your answer, which is quite nice. It's giving you one of your paragraphs, so to speak. The 9 marks is made up of 4 marks for structure, 5 marks for knowledge. You get 1 mark for your introduction, 1 mark for bringing in a second factor that is correct, and then in your conclusion, you're looking to give a judgment, so telling the reader what the most important reason is. And then you want to back up that most important reason with an explanation. The explanation doesn't need to be new information, but it's important that you don't just copy and paste what you've wrote in your main body paragraphs. You'll notice for the main body paragraphs there are 3, so you should write about 3 factors. And within each paragraph there should be 2 explanations. And this is where I'd be going back to using your explain the reasons structure. So make a point and then explain it. Make a point, then explain it. And that's the best way I would say to answer that question. If at any point you get a 9 marker and you're thinking, oh, I don't know how to structure that, or I'm not quite sure what my factors would be, treat it like an explain question. Write 6 explanations. And you should, at least, if they are correct, get 5, maybe even 6 out of 9. And that is far better than missing it out. And that is the most important rule for the 9 marker. Do not miss it out, because certainly in the FABs and in your May exam, you will get 2 9 markers. So that is 18 marks of your 80 marks. So it's a big percentage. The good thing about the 9 marker is there are a lot of marks up for grabs, and it is possible to get those marks. Let's have a wee look at the compare the views. So for the compare the views, it's worth 4 marks, and as long as you follow the formula that you see on the screen, you will be awarded your 4 marks. You don't need any new knowledge, you don't need any knowledge at all, you're just using the 2 sources. You must read the 2 sources and decide if the sources agree or disagree. I would be using like your highlighters or using your pen or pencil to underline comparisons. And the comparisons will often either say very similar things if they agree, or totally different things if they disagree. My biggest advice for you is with the compare the views, if you can make sure in your answer that you can see the word agree or disagrees 5 times, then you know you've done the formula correctly. If you don't see the word agree or disagree 5 times, then you're missing something. Let's have a wee look at the evaluate the usefulness. So, evaluate the usefulness is out of 5 marks. You've got 2 points from the source, 2 omission points, and then 1 author or date. Now, my top tip for this one would be, if you're really struggling with your omission, I would go 2 source points, 1 omission, 1 date, and author. Now, as you know, the cardinal rule for this question is that you must have evaluation for all the sentences. For the source points, the author, and the date, it will always increase the source's usefulness. For the omission, it will always decrease the source's usefulness. And remember, for the author, you've got your buzzwords. Let's say for the Migration Empire, it's a Scot or an immigrant, they would have personal experience. If it's like a journalist or a politician, they have professional experience. And then if they're an expert in the field, they are a modern historian. For your point about the date, I would say it's really important to remember the difference between your primary and secondary sources. If the source was written in 1911 and it's Migration and Empire, the source was written during the time and then whatever the topic is. If it is a modern historian and it's a textbook, let's say it was written in 2020, that was written after our historical period for Migration and Empire, or I would say for all of our history topics, so therefore it has the benefit of hindsight, and that is your buzzwords. Let's have a little look at the how fully describe and the how fully explain. The most important thing to remember, folks, is you must have your judgment sentence. Without your judgment sentence, you are capped at 2 out of 6. We're looking for 3 source points, 3 omission. With the source points, you need to quote the full sentence. Do not try and shorten the sentence. And then you need to explain what that source sentence says in your own words. Keep it simple. Do not bring in new information or trying to change what the source is saying. You just need to change 1 or 2 words that the source sentence says. Just keep it very brief, and you're summarising what that sentence says. You're not changing it. The how fully describe. Sorry, folks, that was the bell there. The how fully describe, you are looking to include facts, specific facts for your omission. For the how fully explain, you need to obviously explain your omission. So I'll just show you on the screen here the structure that we're looking for. We're looking for you to explain your point. So you'll see here in the blue that you make a point and then you explain your point in detail, just like you would do for an explain question. So the structure still stays the same, it's just the omission is looking for you to explain rather than describe. Thank you very much, folks, for your time, and I hope you find this video useful. If you have any further questions, please get in touch with one of us in the History Department. Thank you.